Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If it's your first time here, hello, and thanks for clicking on the video. If you're a returning subscriber or returning viewer, I'd really appreciate the old thumbs up and the old subscriber-roo there, if you don't mind. All right, today we are going to be talking about a vintage piece of Americana knife history, a knife that is near and dear to my heart as a little token of my personal collection and my personal history. We're going to be talking about the Buck 422, aka from the Buck Light family. I don't know why I said aka there, but it's a Buck Light 422. Now, this is the knife in its original sheath, which is over 30 years old. The knife and the owner. And you can see where I, at some point along the way in my life, did a most excellent repair with good old electrical tape that has held up surprisingly well. So this is the knife in its original sheath, and this sheath's actually really high quality. It's like a Cordura material before I knew what Cordura was. So let's take her on out of her sheath and let's talk about this really neat 1990s vintage Buck Light folder that's in that really cool kind of woodland camo pattern there. So, Buck Light series family of knives was introduced by Buck in the 1980s, 1984. And I believe the first original generation of these knives ran until about 1987. Now, this one I purchased myself as about an 11 or 12-year-old youth in 1992. And I've had this knife ever since. It's an original one-owner knife. Buck made these knives with a handle made out of a material called Velox, and that was basically it was a poly resin material made by General Electric Plastics Division. It's known for being very light, basically weatherproof, very strong and durable. You can see that it has those finger grooves in there from the factory, which is actually quite comfortable, to be honest. No sort of jimping or anything like that on this knife. The blade's the good old standard Buck 420 high carbon clip point with the Paul Boz heat treat. And if you don't know anything about that, you can just look up Paul Boz and what the heat treat is for Buck and Buck knives. And if I can get it to catch just right, you can see here where it says good old USA, Buck 422, United States of America. Blade seems to be somewhere kind of in between a hollow and flat grind to me. Probably more of a full hollow, but you can kind of see there where you could kind of go either way with that on the grind there. But you know, this is just a really nostalgic piece of, early buck knife quality. And believe it or not, this was a combo knife, a combo pack, an early buck knife Maglite, mini Maglite combo pack. And the mini Maglite that came with this, I no longer have. It's been lost to the gear gods and sacrificed along the way many, many moons ago. But the Maglite was also woodland camouflage that I remember. And I remember exactly where I bought this knife, and it was at a little bait and tackle shop and hunting store, local, little old place, just outside of the town of Odessa, Delaware. And I worked on my dad's crab boat, his commercial crab boat in the summers. Uh, Pretty much forced involuntary servitude. And I bought this knife and flashlight combination with my own money as about an 11 to 12-year-old kid, and it was really something special. I had my eyes on this knife and flashlight combo for quite a while. I can remember we would go to that store all the time. All of our fishing bait was bought there, hunting gear, shotgun shells. You needed it, you went to Old Cat and Bones to get it in those days. There was no Walmart or nothing like that. And this was up on the wall hanging up, and I had my eyes on it, and I knew that when I had enough money, I was going to purchase it. I can't remember how much I paid for that knife and flashlight combo, but I can guarantee you in 1992, it was not very much money. And, that's just kind of a testament to where we were and where we've come in this country. This is just a really, high quality folder. I mean, it really is. I mean, you know, it's it predates the super tactical guy knives that we all carry and have to have now, right? No jimping, as I already spoke. No thumb stud to assist opening. No spring assist. No liner lock. Just a regular old lockback knife. But in those days, in those early '90s, I mean, this knife was about the coolest damn thing that I had ever saw. And if you grew up on Vietnam movies and Chuck Norris and Van Damme and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone, like I did, and every fantasy, every boyhood fantasy was to have your own knife to run around and adventure in the woods and have your own knife on your side. And as a young Boy Scout and a young hunter in my family, my father, my uncles, and the men that they hung out with, a buck knife was the benchmark of what you carried in those days. It was buck knives and then everything else. And that's just it. That's all we knew. Just like Remington 870 shotguns in those days. That was right. We all, like, my dad went to the field with a Remington 870 and a buck knife on his side, and I was going to do the same thing. And I used this knife as a Boy Scout. When I was a boy in school, when I got to high school, we were allowed to take knives to school as long as it had a 3-inch blade or less. We could take our shotguns to school too for hunting. First day of deer season was an excused absence also. So those were the good old days for sure. But I remember when I finally got this knife and I finally had it in a flashlight because, as I still do to this day, I've got a gear and a knife and a flashlight problem and a backpack problem and every damn other type of piece of gear that you can put your hands and eyes on. So that hasn't changed. And this was one of my first purchases and not my last. But thought you guys would enjoy seeing this, being that, not only is there a neat story behind it, and I carried this knife for many years. And boy, this knife over the years, the last 30 years, it has been missing in action. It has went below surface, resurfaced. It's come back to me many times, and my heart just kind of swells and has been full of warmth because I'm like, hey, she's still with me. And I didn't use this knife for some years, and I've used it for a lot of years and everything in between, as we do with our knives. And as knife technology got better and features got better, this knife kind of went back to the wayside just because, the no pocket clip. Uh, you know, but talk about a testament to buck quality from those days, and not a lot of money to get it. But look at this blade. I mean, this is a 30-year-old pocket knife that got used heavily, especially when I first got it as a young boy growing up on saltwater marshes, working on a commercial crab boat and using this. And there's not a speck of rust anywhere on any of the steel, not the bolsters, not the lockback, not the blade itself. I mean, there's not a speck of rust. And this knife was not, oiled real well before it ever got put away or anything. I've never oiled this knife probably ever in my life. And look at her. She's almost just as good as the day I bought her. Another quick funny story here before I end this video. You can see on the end of the grip here some vestiges and remnants of super glue. And at some point, I got clued into pocket clips on knives. And what I tried to do with this particular knife is I had one of those like brass fish hooks that you wear on your hat. I took that, I cut the hook part off of it, and I transposed it, super glued it onto the grip, the handle of this knife, and I tried to make my own pocket clip. needless to say, that did not last very long and didn't work. I remember it just breaking off one day and it not being a very good pocket clip, as it had like a really jagged edge on it. But look, I was young and I was always trying to modify my own gear and invent things and try to make my own stuff better before I bought something else. And that's what I did. But that came off. And that just kind of, to me, adds to the story of this knife and the adventures that I've had with it. Doesn't get a whole lot of use these days. It's kind of a backup knife now. I actually don't use the case for it. I just kind of toss it in a pocket of my duck hunting jacket, and she's kind of there as a spare knife that I'll always have in my coat if I ever need it. And that's the role that she's taken these days. But uh, I, I I just love this old knife. It brings back some really good memories of my childhood of good hard work ethic and what that can get you. And as a 12-year-old kid, to be able to buy your first buck knife, which was, like I said, the standard at those times, the standard that all knives tried to live up to, and a Maglite, which was the standard for flashlights at that time. It was, to me, it was the best you could get. A buck knife and a Maglite was the best you could get. Uh, to be able to buy that with your own money was really special. And to still have this knife in my collection and with me 30 years later that I could pass on is pretty special too. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you enjoyed the video, if you got any kind of use out of it at all or anything like that, please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Share the videos. And I really hope to see you back on the next one. We'll keep reviewing knives. We'll keep reviewing gear. And hopefully we'll be getting outdoors for some outdoors videos coming up and some camping as well. So that's all I got on this one. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you on the happy hunting grounds.